Hello everyone, welcome again to LIS2360 Web App Development with me, Muhammad Prabu. In this video, we will discuss about the basics of JavaScript. For JavaScript, we are in the lesson 6 and I prepared some lecture notes. Since we covered a lot of things in JavaScript, I divided the materials into 5 parts. So in the first part, I'm talking about introduction, syntax, variables, and arithmetic. And in the part 2, I cover arithmetic and conditionals. In part 3, I cover loops. In part 4, I cover arrays. And part 5, I cover functions and objects. But for this tutorial, I will only cover the basics of JavaScript, where we discuss about the purpose and the basic syntax, and I will also cover the lab assignment. So what is JavaScript? So JavaScript is used in a web page to improve the design and validate forms, detect web browsers, create cookies, and a lot of things. Basically, it's to make the website to become more interactive. Because browsers have limited functionality, it's only to show text, images, tables, and frames. So JavaScript enhances the web page by allowing interactive functions, and also it can manipulate or change any contents in the web page. And JavaScript is one of the most popular scripting language on the internet. As a scripting language, it is very lightweight, and it is also client-side scripting language. So as a client-side scripting language, JavaScript is executed in the client or software that is the viewer is using. So it is different from the server-side language, for example PHP and Python. So JavaScript is usually embedded directly into HTML pages, and it is interpreted on the fly by the client. So each line is processed as it loads in the web browser, and everyone can use JavaScript without purchasing a license. There are a lot of examples on JavaScript, so you can click on the link in the materials, in the lessons, so you can download the examples. For example, you want to include the edge counter to your web page, you can click on it, and then so you can copy paste the codes if you want to have edge counter in your web page. These are free and open source, so there are a lot of examples on how to improve the appearance, especially graphics and visual feedback. So you can use it for site navigation or perform calculation and validation of input and other things. So how does JavaScript works? So JavaScript is embedded within a HTML page, and it executes on client, so it is very fast, no connection needed once it is loaded. And it is very simple programming statements combined with the HTML tags, and it is interpreted, so it doesn't require any compilation of the program. So there is no special tools required to have JavaScript in your web page. So how to write JavaScript in HTML? So there are two ways to add JavaScript in your web page. The first one is embedded, and the second one we use the external file. In both ways, we are still using script tag. Okay, so let's practice with the basic of hello world in JavaScript. You can copy the code into your project file. So I will demonstrate how to write a JavaScript. So let's open up your development environment. So I'm using Cloud9. Every time you want to open the project, you can go to services. You can write Cloud9. So as I mentioned before, there are two ways of creating JavaScript. So the first one is embedded type. So the embedded type, we have the whole JavaScript into our HTML by using a script tag. JavaScript code is written between the opening of the script tag and also the closing of script tag. So for example, document.write h1 hello world. So when we type this and we preview, so there will be h1 tag with hello world. This is the first one on how to create JavaScript. The second one on how to create JavaScript is having a link or external JavaScript. So in here I have HTML file and JS or JavaScript file. So in the HTML file I have this code, HTML code, but we put script tag, so we just leave it the content blank between the script, but I have source to link.js. So basically it tells the web browser that there is an external JavaScript file with name link.js, and in my link.js I have this code. So this code is to tell the web browser write hello world with header1 tag. So when we preview it, we save and then preview. So it's the same with the previous one. So in the materials I have 5 parts of JavaScript lesson, so make sure you read all of the lessons. You can also learn from Zybooks. It is more interactive to learn from the Zybooks, but basically it's similar with the lessons that I put in the lecture notes. So for example, in part 2 I discussed the arithmetic and conditional, such as the element of JavaScript, identifiers, operators, literals, punctuation, and there are types of literals such as number, string, and boolean, and we can do arithmetic operators. It is covered in part 2. In part 3 I explain about loops, so we can use while or do while or for or continue. So for while this is happening and sets the statement. So for while statement, the first line here I declare the variable of count is 1. So while count less than 5 I write count, so variable count here, so it is 1, and then break, and then add the count, and then it checks again because the count is added, so it becomes 2. It's still under, or it is still less than 5, so it's still writing count, so it's now 2, and then break, and then it adds into 3, and it's still checking that it is less than 5, less or similar than 5, and then it is now 3, so it writes 3, and then adds increment again by 1. 4, still less or similar than 5, and then still so it writes 4, and then until 5, and then once the condition is not met, it will close the loops, and then document write, you have printed 5 numbers. We can copy this one if you want to try. So let's copy the codes into link.js here, and then I preview it. So it renders 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you have printed 5 numbers. So you can learn about the loops in part 3, and in part 4 there's an explanation on arrays. So arrays is set of data represented by a single variable name. So we can have multiple value. So it is explained in part 4. In part 5 there is an explanation on functions. So there are two how to define functions. We can have it name functions. It's related to statements assign name, and then call or reference name functions to execute it. And anonymous function is related to statements with no name assigned, and it is work only where they are located in codes. So this is the example for name function syntax. So this is the function, and then it is name. And anonymous function is there is no name of the function itself. So function is explained in part 5. And next I will demonstrate on how to do the lab assignment. So remember, if you want to do a Zybooks assignment, you need to click from the canvas. So here I clicked on lesson 6 lab activity, and then make sure you click it from the link that is listed on canvas only. So if you go direct to Zybooks, your grades will not be transferred to canvas. So please make sure you clicked on the link on canvas that is redirected to Zybooks. So for the lab assignment, we will practice making sure of password strength by using JavaScript. So read again the instruction. So we need to write a function called isStrongPassword, and the password is at least 8 characters long and does not contain the string password, and you can use index of to search password. The password contains at least one uppercase character. So hence you can use a method of charcode add, and if the character is between 65 and 90, then an uppercase character is found. And to begin the lab assignment, you need to click on the downloadable files. So here for the lab assignment, we are using external JavaScript files. So there are two files, index.html and script.js. So this is the zipped files. And if you are using Cloud9, you need to upload it. Click on file, click upload local files, and then you select the files and click open, and then you can close. So this is we can close all non-related files, so we are not distracted. So this is the index.html and this is JavaScript. So the index.html having an external file called script.js here. So we need to write our codes here. So the first one is the password is at least 8 characters long. So there's a hint here. Call is strong password. So we call the function. The function is name is strong password and password. And we can use if or conditional JavaScript. So for this lab assignment, I will not give the answer, but basically the code contains 3 conditional. The first one is to check the length, at least 8 characters. The second one is to check if the password doesn't contain the word password, and the third one is to check if it contains an uppercase. So for lesson 6 lab assignment, Zybooks only want script.js, so we can download the script.js. So as usual, once it is downloaded, we can choose the file and then click submit for grading. And then now I got 10 out of 10. So make sure you do all the instructions to get perfect score. So thank you for watching. That's the end of the basics for JavaScript. See you again in the next video tutorial.